Good morning. Hey, I'm just curious how you and your family are holding up, and I hope everything's well. But how have you adjusted to all this, and maybe what are some of the things you've learned as each day goes by in the remote?
Yeah, I think something that for our players and for my family, my extended family, something I've learned that is very important to all of us is this video connection. It's just everybody's got some anxiety going on. Everybody's lives have been disrupted. And I know it makes me feel a lot better when I can group FaceTime with my brothers and their kids, with my parents, with my players, with our staff. It's just so important right now. These days are kind of like roller coasters, you 1 minute and descriptive documentation of what's going on out there. And it's just, it's terrible and in some places and heartbreaking. And other times you're trying to go about your business and continue to grow your family and develop these players and help everybody kind of get through this in the right way and the best way, and keep bringing everybody together. So it's been that type of experience for us in this house, with my linebackers, with our football team. But for us, there's a lot of Zoom school going on, Zoom work, walking dogs. Heck, we've tried to walk our cats a couple of times. And board games, card games, introduced to all kinds of new things that I'm not usually here in the evenings for. So it's been good that way, that's for sure.
All right, next is Bob Flounders. Bob, let me find you here. All right, go ahead, Bob.
Hi, Brent. How are you?
Good, sir.
Brent, from your perspective, a defensive coordinator's perspective, missing spring practice.
Oh, shit.
Lost you, man.
Go ahead, Bob. You cut off. I'm sorry.
Brent, just from a defensive coordinator's perspective, what's it like missing spring practice? What are the biggest things you're trying to do to kind of make up time when the players come back?
Yeah, I think we're still, our meetings and walkthrough time is so valuable, and to still be able to get with these guys, and we're meeting several times a week, going through installations, just like if we were back in Lash, in that linebacker meeting room. I think the players and myself are getting more and more comfortable, being able to do that and get the most out of those meetings. We're able to share screens and go through diagrams and watch video together. I think it's healthy, first of all, that we're connecting that way. The meetings generally start with each other cutting up on one another like normal. And then we get into some questions about what's going on with everybody's families. And, is this hitting home with anybody? And then at the same time, being able to dive into the football piece and workouts and just kind of gauge where these guys are.
All right, next is Corey Geiger. Hold on, Corey. Let me unmute you. Go ahead.
Hey, Brent, good morning. How are you?
Good.
Brent, clearly this is all unprecedented, but I want to ask you the same thing that James was asked last week. If you're going to start the season as scheduled, when do you need to have the players back? What's a realistic time frame to get everybody to make sure you can not only get all of your work done, but make sure everybody is in good position, from a health standpoint, so there wouldn't be any extra injuries because of the time off?
Yeah, that's a question that, that we've kicked around and discussed as a staff. From a football standpoint, you know, we're used to working with a full camp, but we can certainly, that can be modified. I think, you know, Kirk and those guys on offense, you know, it's a little more challenging for them to make sure that this offense gets installed. And, you know, my hat's off to them, what they did before this all started and how they're going about their business now. But, you know, ultimately that's going to be up for the healthcare professionals, the sports performance department, strength and conditioning, Coach Galt and his staff, the experts in that area. Obviously the important piece is how long, you know, do we need to get these guys ready to go into a camp and feel like we can be healthy and go about our business in a productive way. So, you know, that's obviously something we've discussed. We're talking through. I think the experts in that field, you know, I'm going to trust those guys and you know, see where this thing goes and, you know, be prepared. I just, you know, like anytime you want there to be a level playing field and everybody operating, you know, under the same framework. And then I trust our process that we'll maximize that time.
Next is Tyler Donahue, Lions 247.
Hi, Brent. Great to hear from you. I hope you're doing okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Same to you and your family.
Appreciate that. You know, Micah Parsons, year after year, we say that the bar has been raised by him and by the staff. Here in year 3, where do you see Micah? Is there an opportunity for some more positional versatility from him this year? And then those 2 starting positions that are open alongside him, any light you can shed on those situations?
Yeah, first of all, with Micah, I mean, he's obviously, I'm pleased with his development to this point. You know, he's eager, he's determined, and, you know, that never wavers. And I think that he's one of those guys that you want to have covering the best back, covering the best tight end, touching off the edge. You know, you'd like to have him in a couple different places. So, you know, maximizing what he can do for us each and every snap that he's on the field is important. It was certainly brought up quite a bit in our off-season self-scout. How can we, you know, use Micah more, get him in the best position to be successful for himself and for our unit? He's obviously a rare talent, and I think he's still his best football's in front of him. And as he continues to grow and develop in the meeting room and work habits and just mature as a college football player, I think we're going to see a better and better Micah Parsons out there, you know, each and every week. So we've got to get him more involved. I know he's very good at, you know, on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And his rush ability is one of his best traits. You know, he's obviously been productive there, but I think we can still, you know, we can see some improvement there. We can get a little more mileage out of how good he is at coming off that edge or through those gaps, as was apparent in the Cotton Bowl. So he's a guy that gets a lot of attention in our room, but we've got a bunch of other good linebackers at my position, guys I'm really excited about. You know, you lose a guy like Jan and a guy like Cam, veterans, maturity, experienced, hard workers. They're tough to replace, but I like the you know, the guys in the room. I like the candidates, and Ellis Brooks and Jesse Lucchetta, certainly 2 guys with good experience that, you know, will battle it out at one of those spots, and then Brandon Smith, Lance Dixon, Charlie Catcher. I'm excited about all 3 of those guys and what they're bringing to the table right now. So, you know, there's a lot of depth in the room and a lot of competition. And in my experience, that's pretty good ingredients for a good unit. So, you know, I'm excited about the guys.
All right, next up we have Audrey Snyder from The Athletic.
Hey, Brent, good morning.
Hi, Audrey.
I'm wondering, kind of staying there with the depth chart, those kinds of things. When you look back at your pass defense last year, what stands out to you there? Where do you think there's room for growth with that particular group?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And obviously that was another item at the top of our list of off-season studies.
Mm-hmm.
And, the biggest reason or the biggest area of concern to me was explosive passes given up and why those were occurring. Was it lack of rush? Was it inexperience at the position? Was it quarterbacks able to ID coverage too easily? Was it not enough coverage variety? Was it too many coverages and not playing any of them quite well enough? That was a strength of ours the year before. Obviously we improved in our run defense from 2018, which was a big goal for us in the offseason. And, did we overcommit to the box? Did we get too aggressive in supporting the run and create some liabilities? So there was a lot of questions to be answered. Certainly a good study for us. We went around the country and studied teams that were defending the pass very well in 2019, teams that defended the pass against some of the best quarterbacks in the country, which was good for us. I think also looking at the formations that gave us the most trouble in the throw game, we studied those and where we could be better there. So it was a good off-season study. Obviously each year there's going to be areas where you need to see improvement. And I think that's one right now that, as I mentioned, is at the top or near the top of our list. And got a lot of confidence in our guys back there. Got a lot of confidence in our coaches. And I'm excited about when we do return to the field, the improvements we can make in that area.
Next up is Frank Wolf.
Good morning. Thanks for putting this together, Greg. Coach Pry, my question has to do more with recruiting. And what would you tell a high school kid, class of 20, class of 21, how best prepare during this time of crisis? Schools such as PSU maybe taking a look at someone, what can they do to stay focused at this time, to stay on your radar?
Yeah, I think, as always the case with recruiting, it goes back to relationships. And, there's a lot of time that everybody has right now to FaceTime, to get on the telephone, to continue to get to know one another. There's virtual tours of campuses. There's the ability to interact with more than just one person on a staff, more than just one person in a family. You have time to do all those things. And in the end, facilities are fantastic, but it's about the people in our program and the people in that family that we're recruiting. And this is the opportunity to get to know everybody a little bit better, a little closer, to make sure that everybody, both ends, are making the right decisions. Some guys are feeling a lot of angst. Some families are motivated through this to make an earlier decision. We just try and provide the guidance that, what commitment means and what that's all about. And, and then some guys are really putting pause on this thing and going to wait till this thing kind of clears up and they can get back around and do the things they want to do. So I think for everybody, it's a unique experience and everybody's going to cut their own path with it. We've got a good plan in place. We're relationship based. And so that, we've still been able to continue our work and how we want to go about things for the most part. Obviously not ideal.
Next up, we have Rich Scarcella from the Reading Eagle.
Morning, Brent. Glad to hear you and your family are doing well. With your guys not in town, not on campus, what's your biggest concern with them?
First of all, my biggest concern is that you didn't ask me about Jan Johnson.
I knew you were going to say that.
I just talked to Jan the other day.
Yeah.
And you can imagine it was a great conversation. You know, he finds a way to make good in anything. And he's growing and developing and still hoping for an opportunity. So it was good to hear from him.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead with your question.
No problem. I said, with your guys off campus and home and spread out, what's your biggest concern for them and with them?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you know, we start every meeting we have. I ask them about their families and their personal situation. You know, how has this virus touched them? You know, is there somebody they know? Is their family affected with job losses? Do they have family in the medical field? Just kind of, you know, getting personal with them. This isn't about just business. It never is. It's never just about football. It's so much more, even though football is such a big part of these guys' lives. But, you know, and then, you know, I think that the next question is, how are they doing? And are they navigating the schoolwork? You know, it's very important to us that these guys are steadfast in getting into some structure and a routine, and that includes classes. You know, I've been so impressed with the way Penn State has handled this. These guys had the ability to jump right into a regular week routine with tutors, with academic counselors, obviously with their classes, professor meetings. You know, these guys, it didn't take much time at all for them to have the opportunity to have a, you know, a virtual week of school with all the resources they need. You know, and then we talk about the workout aspect and the health and, you know, these guys getting out in some sunshine and finding some solitude to do some things to stay healthy. And, you know, I know our strength staff is working within the rules to supply whatever resources we can to those guys. And then, you know, ultimately to be able to continue to grow these guys as football players and help prepare them for when we do return to play. And, you know, it's good. You wonder about guys between meetings and what's going on in their lives. And so when you first jump back on that Zoom, you know, my thought is always, is everybody joining in? You know, I'm waiting for that last guy to hook up and see his face. You just don't want to see anybody kind of slipping away or giving into this thing, you know, and we've been really good. You know, everybody's meeting with their guys across the board, and, you know, guys are positive, and, you know, we're such a process-driven organization. I hope that the way we've developed these guys and the time they've been with us, that it helps them. I believe it does during times like this. They want routine, they want process, and we're giving it to them. You know, they should have some self-responsibility and self-discipline to be able to navigate their day and the things that are going on. You know, sports is about dealing with adversity so much of the time. And we talked about, you know, our preseason last year, our mantra was how the adversity we face in our preseason camp will shape our season. And we talk about adversity a lot in our program and how we handle it, like a lot of folks do. But, you know, I think that this is a lesson learned for everybody, in particular for our guys, and working through this process. And, you know, it's just great to be able to connect with them and see their faces and joke around and talk about things that, you know, we're family. And it's just great to connect with those guys, you know, several times a week.
All right, next we have Mark Brennan from Lions 247.
Hey, Brent. Thanks for doing this today.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm wondering, you talked a little bit about self-scout before. How much of a bonus has it been to have Kirk on the staff now? You know, somebody you obviously went head-to-head and has seen, you know, had a kind of game plan for you guys last year. How much communication have you guys had, and how much of a bonus has that been, maybe both ways?
Yeah, first of all, he's an outstanding guy, very selfless. You know, it's been great getting to know Kirk, and, you know, tremendous respect for him and what he did at Minnesota, what he did at Western Michigan. I've got a lot of friends in the business that think very highly of Kirk, and So I didn't know him personally, but I knew certainly of him, and so excited that he's on board with us. I really think the guys, the offensive players, the defensive players are excited and buying into what Kirk brings to our program. And, so walking down the hall and being able to pick each other's brain, we've had a couple of discussions about some key plays in that game where they were able to take advantage of some things and why. And so it's been great. Very knowledgeable football coach, just a great student of the game. And, I'm anxious to learn from Kirk, and I'm very glad that he's on board with us.
Next up, we have Mike Gross from Lancaster.
Hi, Brent. Thanks for doing this.
Yes, sir.
Question about defensive backs. With you moving Trent from corner to safety, and even with the kid who was a kicker last year and is now listed as a cornerback. I mean, there are a lot of good athletes, it seems to me, like in that position group, a lot of guys that can run. How do you figure out that one guy is a corner, one guy is a safety? What are the kind of things that you kind of look for that maybe, I mean, I don't really know. How do you make that determination?
Without getting into specifics, I'll say this. There's certain traits at corner that we look for. There's certain traits at safety that we look for. And to break that down even further, our safety that plays primarily to the field versus our safety that plays primarily to the boundary. At times, our corner that plays primarily to the field, our corner that plays primarily to the boundary. The second piece is, minimizing players' liabilities and maximizing their assets. When you look at a young man that's a corner and you look at all the techniques and skills that you'd like for him to be good at, if he's not checking enough of those boxes, if you slide him over to field safety and you look at the criteria there, does he check more of those boxes? And for us, I think Trent Gordon was a perfect example. He was a guy that had some solid corner credentials and was continuing to develop at that position. But when we looked around at our personnel boards, at our technique boards, he checked more boxes at the safety position, which is good for him and good for us. For some guys, it takes a short time to figure that out. And for some guys, it takes us a little bit longer, to figure out what their best position is. I think that's one of the critical things that we can do as coaches, is that evaluation piece on a regular basis of the guys in our program, and are they in the right spot to reach their potential and to help us the most.
Next up, we have Ben Jones from statecollege.com.
Hey, Brent, I'm somewhere in this Brady bunch.
What's up, man? I see you, brother.
All right. You've been able to identify guys at recruiting camps over the year. Maybe they were already on your radar, but they perform.
Yeah.
You offer them. If nobody knows what next week's going to look like, but if you don't have those camps, how do you go about identifying guys that maybe you would have offered or would have been interested in, but you ultimately never got to see in person?
For me personally, we're having these discussions now. I mean, it's a great question because without the promise of camps and even spring visits and, seeing these guys perform at these combines and getting testing numbers and measurables, having them out, in our own personal camps and working them out. I mean, for me, I keep going back to what I do know about guys, and guys that answer more questions and more, check more boxes than they don't check, and things that we do know about certain guys. Let's go back, and if we don't have an opportunity, there's 7 or 8 linebackers that we'd like to evaluate, and we don't have an opportunity to do that any further. Let's talk about what they bring to the table and what are things we know about each one of these guys, questions that don't need answered. And then let's kind of re-rank these guys with that information, with that perspective, and see how it kind of plays out. So we're still navigating those waters. It's tricky. Obviously, everybody's dealing with it. But we've got certainly a really good pool. A lot of prospects out there interested in Penn State and what we're doing. And we're trying not to make hasty decisions and still be diligent and trust our process. And it's just like anything, you know, I mean, a little bit of adversity is an opportunity to grow and be challenged in some different areas. And I trust that we'll work through it the right way.
Next up, we have Nubias Wilborn from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Hello, Coach.
Hello.
Hey, man. First of all, good to meet you. Second, just a quick question. How are you guys handling the nutrition aspect?
Yeah, of course.
Can you hear me?
You know, our nutrition staff does a great job. Kayla and her crew have been reaching out to guys, working through, you know, what food is accessible to them and how their diet needs to be changing with the situation they're in. You know, workouts are different, so the diet needs to be somewhat changed. And, you know, these guys, you know, our nutrition staff has been having their Zoom meetings just like our coaching staff. And, you know, coming up with the best plan for our student athletes and then getting it to them and helping them implement it. So certainly something that's not being forgotten about.
Next up, we have John Padishnock from HappyValley.com.
Hey, good morning, Brent, and I'm sending along best wishes to you and your family. Thanks for making time for us.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.
Hey, with Dion Barnes rejoining the program as a grad assistant, what does it mean when you can bring a letterman back to the program, and what do you expect him to bring to the team?
Yeah, first of all, it was a great hire for us. I was very proud that Dion, of the coach that he's become. He's always been well thought of by our staff and everybody in our program. But he's just grown as a person and as a coach. And you know, I couldn't be more excited to have him join us, more proud that he wanted to come back to his alma mater. It was very important to him. He obviously has goals and aspirations to be a big-time ball coach, but he also wanted to give back to Penn State and the student athletes in this program. He's an outstanding person. He's built some great relationships in his hometown area. He's built great relationships in the Penn State community. He's an asset already to our program, to our recruiting efforts. I just can't say enough good things about him. You know, it's tough to lose a guy like Spence, but when you can replace him or hire some guys in his spot, rather, like John Scott and Dion Barnes, it makes you feel really good. First of all, that those guys want to be with us, guys that were highly sought after, want to be here at Penn State and believe in what we're doing. And then also, you know, just for our defensive linemen up front and for everybody in our program, you know, just two outstanding men that will be mentors and developers of these guys. And let me say this, we got taller on the defensive staff when we added Dion and John Scott, because Chaos was a shrimp, as we all know, shorter than me. So we upgraded in that department. The offense doesn't have anything to say anymore. They went from Ronnie to Kirk. We went from Spencer to Scott and Dion. So we gained some inches.
Time for a couple more. We got Donnie Collins from the Times-Tribune.
Hey, Brent, glad you're doing well. I was going to ask you about John Scott, actually. How different is he than Sean was, and how does he kind of help fill that gap?
Yeah, I think that's the unique thing. You know, John is different than Spence in a bunch of ways. You know, his nickname isn't going to be Chaos, but that's not to take anything away from Spence or John. They're both just tremendous guys in their own right. Very different in some areas in their coaching style, not so much in technique. You Spence and I were very much on the same page coming into our time together, and then certainly more so after. And John has worked with me in 3 different places and very much on the same page. So that transition is very, very smooth. John's certainly going to bring some fresh ideas. He's been around some very good football coaches. He's already impacted, our unit that way. But at the same time, both these guys, what was really important to Coach and I is that these guys would care about these players like Sean did. And, John and Dion both will do that. They're in it for the right reasons. They're guys like Coach and myself and everybody else in our building that we're relationship based. We want to see these guys mature, develop, and reach their potential. And, we want to be, all great staff guys and be a big family and be there for each other. And I think John and Spence are so much alike that way. And, everybody's embracing John, his wife. They have a new baby. So, just excited to get going. I know John's very anxious to get out there on the field. He's a passionate guy out there on that football field. He's a great teacher and a great coach. And, I'm anxious to see how our defensive line, the development and the growth in some new areas for those guys as they're exposed to, some new things that John brings to the table.
All right, we have time for one more. Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, Brent. Thanks for doing this. We appreciate your
Joe.
time.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Hope you're doing okay over there.
Thank you. We are. Player leadership, I guess, is really vital during this time. With having lost 5 seniors off the defense plus Etor, who are the guys that have taken over as the primary leaders of your unit?
Yeah, we've got we obviously have had these discussions as a defensive staff about the guys that, demonstrated some leadership qualities in the 2019 season, guys that demonstrate leadership qualities through our winter program. And, we've got some guys at each position that come to mind. There's some guys that have played a lot of football. Lamont Wade, Shaka Tony, Antonio Shelton, guys that have really been in the battles with us. And then there's some guys that, have been in more of a backup role that are in position to be a starter or to play a significant amount of reps that also bring a lot of leadership qualities that we're excited about. P.J. Mustapher, Jesse Lucetta, Ellis Brooks, Tariq Castro-Fields. There's a good pool of guys. It's certainly different than last year. Coming into last year with Garrett Taylor, Jan Johnson, and Cam Brown, 3 seniors that had played a lot, matured a lot, been through a lot. So it's, I love our pool. I love our candidates. Obviously, that's part of our job is to develop and cultivate these guys to be great leaders. And because that's going to be very important for us. That's one of those other areas at the top of our list in the defensive room. We've got to make sure that we're checking boxes on the leadership and maturity from some guys that can work us through, the adversity that we'll see. And, I'm excited about the candidates, though. I really am. We've got some great guys that want to do it, that are respected by their teammates and their coaches. And it's not always, I think that's part of the winter, the spring, the summer, the camp. It's those leaders emerge, and that's part of the process. And so we're nowhere near where we need to be, but, I'm excited about the outlook for it.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Everybody take care.